Hi, my friends. Welcome to Inside the Minds of Authors. I'm DC Gomez, your host, and also an indie author. I'm thrilled you're joining me today for another fun interview with a passionate author. We're going to kick off this show with an exciting reading, so let's get started.
So my name is Linwood Jackson Jr. I am an author on devotional health, devotional lifestyle, how you can better maintain your devotional well-being while staying mainly not necessarily traditional, but stepping outside of traditional roots and discovering the person within so that you can maintain yourself not by the judgments or the impressions or the traditional lifestyle that you may be accustomed to or that you may adopt, but according to the character that you have within, according to your own thoughts and feelings. Those thoughts and feelings to regulate your personal and devotional conscience. Book I published entitled Justification. This book is just an introduction to how you can better your devotional lifestyle and how you can cultivate a habit of you, cultivating a habit of a philosophy that you develop through exercising the words that are within the Bible and challenging what you think you know with what is in there so that you can get something to know and then recycling that experience to build knowledge of it. I'll read the introduction to this book so to just give a feel, just a feel. Our faith, so long as we educate it, is intelligent. To hear thy faith hath made thee whole, and according to your faith be it unto you. Bears witness to the fact that within faith is an intelligent substance capable of bringing into existence whatsoever the heart and mind will cultivate. The only issue is on what to have faith on and why. When faith's what and why is answered, the question of how to have faith will never surface. Because when we hear, believe ye that I am able to do this, having a faith already nurtured on an established hope, yes, Lord, we will confidently and comfortably reply. Faith is easy and involves no thought when once the heart and mind are together engaged on a desire. But faith's what and why is difficult to grasp. Because what can I have faith in without any knowledge of what to spend the energy of my faith on? And why should I spend that energy without knowing or personally understanding why I should spend myself? Faith is not empty or negligent, but faith has an appetite that must be fed. And the regimen of every personal faith revolves around and experimenting with hope to acquire knowledge of what to exercise faith on and why. If it then says have faith in God, it is crucial to our faith's development that we understand why we are to have faith in God and in what context. The ninth division of the book of Matthew opens up our understanding to what our faith should rest on and why, to the end our conversation may operate as a sure creature, creation's wisdom. What to have faith on is clearly revealed to us in the ninth division of the book of Matthew. When once an issue of blood has within our conscience come to our knowledge, or if we mentally or spiritually sleep and that slumber has come to our knowledge, or if we are inwardly blind to how to care for self and that blindness has come to our knowledge, then it's time to take the body of that knowledge on the living God's religious character for wisdom to apply for refreshing our spiritual understanding. Because creation is the end of the Bible science, when once our need for newness of thought and feeling has dawned upon our conscience, it's time not only to trust that we can know liberation from our character defects, but that we can also learn how to refrain from that defect to remain free from self-cultivated or inherited illness. It's for this reason that Paul, understanding the end of heaven's will, counsels, believe on him that raised up Jesus our Lord from the dead, and if the spirit of him that raised up Jesus from the dead dwell in you, he that raised up Christ from the dead shall also quicken your mortal bodies by his spirit. Our faith has the ability to make or to create our conversation's mind whole because its attention is placed on the living God's wisdom, making it well to remember that God is spirit. To hear have faith in God is to hear have faith in what is spirit, meaning that there is given to us some promise of his mind to believe on for a certain manner of creation. If we have faith on this mind's counsel, then we might receive the promise of the Spirit through faith, and that promise is plainly deliverance from mental and spiritual illness of blood, sleep, and blindness, making it imperative to understand that through knowledge shall the just be delivered. In every case within the ninth division of the book of Matthew, a promise believed on by hope resulted in the end of that hope when exercised by faith. While one priest spoke to the living God's chief apostle about his sick daughter, a woman which was diseased with an issue of blood 12 years came behind him and touched the hem of his garment, for she said within herself, if I may but touch his garment, I shall be whole. The goal for this woman was to receive clean blood to better purify her brain and organs from impurities, which impurities kept her lame and unable to function without discomfort, seeing as how she had spent all her living upon physicians, neither could be healed by any. But for this woman, the force behind the garment of this minister, she believed, afforded her a better lifestyle. Creation is the end of faith. And since there is no physical garment for us to touch, our thoughts must rise higher, when hopeful to discern what commandment we are to apply self to, and why, seeing as how God required with that which is past. The assignment of old to faithfully touch this man's garment still stands, but it's our responsibility to put our labor in right context. By touching his garment, immediately her issue of blood stanched. Therefore, if we also care to have our diseased blood halted in exchange for a pure and sober mind, with better circulation than ever, it's well to know how to handle this garment. Blood, as it is mentioned, should not be thought of as literal blood, for the life of the flesh is in the blood. The force behind this man's garment is for rescuing our flesh, or our devotional conversation, from the life within our blood, and that life is the means whereby we falsely enjoy the works or the lust of our flesh, fulfilling the desires of the flesh and of the mind. In Matthew, we may find the historian reviewing a scene in the life of the living God's chief apostle, but the meaning behind the story is for our spiritual learning, that we might through the Spirit wait through hope, the righteousness by faith. This woman did not believe in emptiness, but her faith centered around the garment of the living God's minister, that by actively engaging herself with it, she might obtain the end of her faith, which end should be newness to exercising faith on her hope. And this lesson is for us. The garment, or the covering of this man, is the name or counsel of his doctrine, which name is called, in quotes, Jesus Christ, or as it says, they shall call his name Emmanuel, which being interpreted is God with us. Name does not equate to a literal name, but refers to the doctrine or saying of one's religious character. And as it says, has kept my word and has not denied my name, and thou holdest fast my name and hast not denied my faith. The name of Jesus Christ is the counsel or wisdom of the living God's spiritual understanding. And for us to touch the garment of this man, it is that our conversations conscience must closely examine and execute the counsel of this doctrine, which is why it says, you're clean through the word that I've spoken unto you. When once our conversation can handle creation's present commandment, or faith may have credible knowledge of what to have faith on and why. We're all born with a form of contaminated blood possessing and directing our thoughts and feelings, both personal and devotional. Wherefore we should know that without shedding of blood is no remission. In order to obtain healthy blood for a sober conversation, that the life of our naturally contaminated blood must find itself pouring out from us. For the body of the conversation's mind must suffer a wound by the body of the living God's knowledge. Naturally, the life of the flesh is in the blood, but in reality, a sound heart is the life of the flesh. If it is that we care to own a sane, vibrant, and stable religious character, it's then that a resurrection and circumcision of the inward person's conscience is necessary, and circumcision is that of the heart and the spirit. This is why it says, whosoever shall take his life and lose it, and whosoever will lose his life for my sake shall find it. And he that loveth his life shall lose it. He that hateth his life in this world shall keep it unto life eternal. In order to properly have a well-educated faith, the natural life of our spiritual upbringing must find itself sacrificed for a new and better conversation. And we cannot advance in this wisdom while entertaining the earth's wisdom. There's a will of heaven and a doctrine and tension within the earth. And seeing as how it says of this false religion plaguing earth, he was cast out into the earth. Seek those things which are above, where Christ sat on the right hand of God. Set your affections on things above, not on things on the earth. Again, it says that the law is light, and when once the Spirit's law, which law is the light of the knowledge of the glory of God, shines upon our conscience of the conversation, this wisdom will purge your conscience from dead works to serve the living God. Liberation from dead or pointless devotional works or labors is therefore this wisdom's concern. For this is the will of God, even your sanctification, that you should abstain from fornication, that every one of you should know how to possess his vessel in sanctification and honor. We have to know that the living God's wisdom is the appointed Savior for self and also for the religious world's philosophy. And this step is to cultivate faith in the judgment and commandment it preaches, or our faith must hear its voice. And there's no such thing as catching this wisdom's full impression from another mouth. The commandment is private and individual, saying you're clean through the word which I have spoken. Faith is as personal to every mind as is the heart to every body. So this connection reforms the heart's organs to better fill up the emptiness within the natural body's mind with the translated wisdom of the mind derived from the living God's wisdom. And once the heart begins to embrace conversational reform by this understanding and experience, it is that the limbs of the body will be encouraged to act out the vibration of the heart's purified instruments, encouraging the development of faith as the mind and body exercises the life of its newly acquired wisdom. Heaven's will therefore cleanses our inward person from all personal and devotional illness, but it is on us to immerse our mind in it for the beautifying of our faith's character.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Inside the Minds of Authors. Today we have this talented Mr. Linwood. Hi, how are you today?
Very, very, very good.
Awesome. I'm so excited to have you on this show. Let's get us going. And I'm very curious about this title, Devotional Lifestyle. You need to tell me, what is devotional lifestyle? Give me more information on that.
Devotional lifestyle is how you carry your belief. We have in our cars things that we hang. So is our belief based on an object? Do we need an object in order to make our belief credible? Or do we need another individual that we need to hang on to make that credible? Or do we need some source of literature? Or do we need something to make our belief believable to ourselves? For me, the culture that I study is the culture within the Bible. And the philosophy within the Bible teaches that these things are damaging for our human being because they cause us to rely on them in a way that can lead to an unhealthy nature, in a sense that we can then become what we think we are admiring and forget who we are completely. There's no self in these things, but there's self in us. So how we manage ourselves according to our assurance and according to what we believe, that's devotional culture. Ensuring the health of that's what I love to write about.
That is extremely powerful. And you translated this into a book. Where did this idea for this book come from? Because I'm going, ooh, I love the title. So tell us, how did that come about?
It came from interactions from the years. Even when I first cracked open the words of the Bible to see if there was any sort of real substance in them, because I had checked out different philosophies, my reasoning for doing this is love. I want to understand love and why I don't have it within me, and why I haven't really seen it demonstrated within anyone else. And how come, the love that I've never seen demonstrated and the love that I know I don't have, it's just non existent. And so my search for the definition of love came from this. Cracked open the Bible to see if there was anything real in it, and there was. And so I found the definition of love, and I began to teach it in the way that the Bible teaches it. The more that I learned it, and the more that I gave it, the more responses I came back as the curious minds. As I've been thinking this way for the past 40 years. What am I supposed to do now? Or if the Bible says this, but yet my Christian religion says that, these two really aren't, they're not going together, because I need to do this in the Christian religion to be happy. And then the Bible is saying I need to do this to be happy. That was the main motivation. It was one, my own search for understanding love and how to understand a clear love for myself to give it to whoever I should meet in my life. And then the comments that I get from other people who are more interested than me because their background is coming from being brought up or institutionalized in religion, whether they're graduated or whether through mother and father. It's a different world for them when they hear the language and the context of the Bible broken down. And it's just their interest and their curiosity makes me more interested and more curious. And that's really the main reason.
Love is always a very, to some extent, I think, controversial topic because we use the word so easily. Like, I love ice cream or I love my cat. Is it the
Yeah.
same love? And I've been having those conversations recently with myself. So I think that's perfect timing because I'm working on the same thing. But you talked about the definition of love from a more contextual things in the Bible. What is that definition? So tell our listeners who are not familiar,
Yep.
what is the true definition?
Well, the Bible is a book that's written by Eastern minds. So we mistakenly think that the Bible is a Western book because it's been Christianized. So every year, new Bibles are printed by Christian minds, Christian thinkers with a Western philosophy. Originally, the Bible is not a Western philosophical book. And the Western mind, which is more catered towards self and which is more self centered, this is not the way that the minds that wrote the Bible. The Bible is a philosophy written by Eastern minds, written with an Eastern philosophical context. So the definition of love isn't going to be romantic. The definition of love isn't going to be self centered. The definition of love isn't going to be, I need to do this so that I can feel good about myself. The definition of love isn't going to be, I need to do this for you so that you can then feel good about me so that I can feel good about myself. The philosophy within the Bible teaches that love is just stripped down edification. To love self is to edify self, and to love is to edify. And to edify to the point where the emerging vision or the emerging sense of who you are is changing and is positively affecting who you know you can be. And then in another, it's positively changing the emerging vision or sense that another person has of themselves so that they then can figure out within that newly emerging vision that they've received through your compassionate edification. So the definition of love, just rooted down, is edification. To love is to edify. And that is something that I've learned, and that is something that has been my continual study within that philosophy of the Bible, is the intelligence of edifying and the intelligence of benevolence. In our Western culture, we would call it empathy, but it's sort of deeper than empathy. It's edifying to the point where you're not just empathizing naturally, you're empathizing with the devotional mind that is within the person to the point where then they can then empathize with themselves in both contexts, personal and devotional, and causing that emerging vision of the personal and devotional life to change and mesh to form a more valid, authentic, genuine human being.
You mentioned that it's hard to find true love nowadays because it's not there. And one of the things that is very hard for us is unconditional love is something we haven't been seeing modeled. Let's be honest.
Mm,
You define it really well is I'm going to love you if you do A, B, and C for me so I can love myself.
yep,
To give somebody, to be patient, to forgive everything, to respect everything, to not put somebody down, to not hold a grudge. Let's go into the grudge category.
that's tough.
One of my best and dear friends says, I'm very much trying to forgive and forget and let it go. She's like, oh, I'll forgive you, but I'm not going to forget and I'm going to bring it up. It goes contradicted with love, you know? So
Yeah,
that concept of not being seen, it's hard for us to imagine unconditional love when everything we have seen is, I'm going to love you with
yep.
a condition that you are a good kid, a condition that you do good grades, that you behave. So finding that I think is beautiful because you have changed the way people will probably see it. And you're taking the Bible from a whole different context, which I completely love. How long have you been studying this?
10 years. So I
Wow.
like to tell people like I'm literally, even though like I just turned 31, I'm literally 10 years old in the sense of mentality. 10 years old and understanding what it means to be a human being. Everything you just said just now just reminded me of the fact of how naturally we're trained to evaluate. And we're trained to evaluate life by merit. It's nice and it feels very genuine to do so. It's really not the right thing to do if we're going to learn how to be highly functioning human beings. And highly functioning, not necessarily meaning reaching your highest potential industrially or academically, reaching the highest potential of your person, of your character, highest potential of your thoughts and feelings. Reversing that, not looking at anything through merit, look at it as through nothing. Expect nothing, get nothing. You're simply doing it for the fact that your development as a character is more necessary to your existence than either receiving or not receiving. I guess that's a different sort of philosophy because then where's the motivation to do anything? But the motivation then is your development mentally and inwardly, your development to be the character, to flow with nature, to be the character to flow with your desires. If you have no desires and if you really can't see anything in nature, to then know your connection to everything, to have a developing image of what to pursue, what to spend your time and your life on. Because even right now, I'll tell you this pandemic thing, it's freaking me out because people are just home doing nothing. Naturally, this is what we love. Human beings love ease. We don't like to think. We don't like to love. We don't like to do anything that conflicts with ease. And this is the condition that we're born with. We were created in this fashion. We have to mend this fracture by challenging it. And the concept of love, as the Bible teaches it, of edification, doing without doing without thinking, doing everything to not stumble over yourself while you're doing it. It's only building up character and strength personally, inwardly, and allowing you to know that you do connect to a mind that is far larger than what you can see and to what you can actually sense. Because we're all searching for one, love, and in all the wrong places, and we're all searching for a mind that relates to us in all the wrong places.
We're all in a search to find who we are. And I think I've heard from spiritual leaders put it really well. We're literally trying to come home and whatever home might be for us. But I
Yeah.
love the fact that you said doing without expectations. And I think expectations is one of those things that truly leads us down the worst path. Because if you're always expecting something and you don't get it,
Heartbreak.
absolutely, you're hardly disappointed and you have these assumptions. I don't know if you read the book by Don Miguel, which I love, which is The Four Agreements. He is huge about not taking things personal, not doing assumptions, doing your best, but it's coming back to that center and that home. But the fact that if you take the assumptions out of the equations, you take the expectations out of the equation, and you accept people for who they are, we become so much more compassionate. It changes the way we look at each other. So I love your expectation theory. And I'm like, that is beautiful. How long did it take you to write this book?
I began publishing since 2017. So all of the books that I began publishing, I wrote 4 years prior. So this book, Justification, I began writing it in 2014, and I let it just sit until I gained enough understanding to go back into it. And I began re-editing it 2 years ago, and then I published it March 2021. Each year, my subjects, they change, they go into their own category, but I always go back to them and re-look at them to understand if there's more. Is this an introduction? Have I missed something? It's been 2 years since I looked at this. What if I gained more? One of those things. This book has been put together since 2014.
Did you had a target audience in mind or is this very wide? Who were you aiming for?
Yeah, I was aiming for curious people. And as time went on, that has changed to people that have been hurt by religion and philosophy and by irreligion. Since I've been out there, that's the main people that contact me. The main messages that I hear are, I've just left my church and somehow came across you. Can you break down one of your books for me? Or I just bought one of your books and I just left my church. What is this? And what is that? It's just things like that. Without even having to force my scope has sort of forced itself on me, which is a scary, very pleasurable reality.
It goes perfect with your theme and your lifestyle. So I think that's beautiful. Like when you stop struggling to try to figure out who you are, the words come together and let you know who you are, true passion. So that's beautiful.
Because as an author, there's a lot to being an author that is just not cool. I know. You don't really think about it. You think you can just publish a book and it's just out there and like the whole world is going to come to you. But that's not how it works. One of the things is your target audience. So when you can be out there enough to where like your audience comes to you, you don't even have to divide the scope of the universe to find them. They somehow find you. It just makes your life as an author that much more easier. And it also changes your dynamic because as an author, you want your writing to touch everyone, but then you see that you're a human being that's catered to a specific audience. So to do anything contrary to that, you're doing something, I believe, you're doing something contrary to the reason why you're born and to the audience that you're supposed to speak to. So the more that I've gone through this and the more that I have learned is the more that I have understood and have accepted that my audience is just like me, even though I don't have the same experience, but my audience is like me. They have the same thoughts, they have the same feelings. That other audience, I can be introduced to somebody that's not my audience, and their perspective could be widened. And it's just interesting when the audience finds you. And as an author, it takes a little bit of it's alleviation, and it's also humbling because you want to reach everybody, you want to do everything, but you're here for a reason. Your audience is there for a reason. You're touching them for a reason. So that's something cool.
It's really awesome. It is perfect when the right people find you and they'll talk about you. They'll share your words with somebody else and they'll spread the message. So I love it. And it also true. We want to touch everybody, but only the right people are going to find you at the right time. So some
Yeah.
things you don't have to rush it because it'll fall into place. Tell me, what are you working on now?
Oh man, I have a work. All right, two. One similar research type philosophical book to publish, but the one I'm really excited about, which I'm hoping to publish by late 2021, is a fiction book, which I wrote. back in 2011, and I put it away because my life and my style of writing and philosophy completely changed until one of my buddies who just kept bugging me about it because I wrote it and then I gave it to him. He printed all the pages, got a binder for it, and loved it and loved the story. And a couple like months ago, he was just like, "Are you gonna publish this yet, or what's going on with that?"
You know he
Uh,
wants his copy. I hope you realize.
Yeah.
He
Oh
wants a
yeah.
cover for it, so he
Oh
wants
yeah.
a signed copy. So you need to start writing this book because that's what he's looking for.
He's giving me pictures that he thinks would go with the characters. I wrote a dedication to him in the book, and I showed it to him, and he loved it. So
He's committed.
he's committed. It even got to the point a couple years ago when I started writing it back in 2013. There's three different series, and he was so into it. I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna put you in the book. He was like, put me in. So
He's ready.
I have like a character's name is like framed with his name in it. That's pretty awesome. So that's a fantasy book. I used a lot of Greek gods in it, and a lot of the illustrations that are in the Bible, the mythology, not from the philosophical standpoint, but simply from the lore standpoint. And so this one main character, he's going through his life. He's pitted between heaven, hell, and Olympus. Doesn't care for them, but he wants to have a rule and a life of his own. So he's trying to discover himself while being discovered by others. And the cool part is that his entire memory has been wiped. So you're spending the time going with him, trying to figure out his memories or recount his memories to build up to the present. And then once you get to that point, what's he gonna do?
That is an awesome premise. I love the combination heaven, hell, and Olympus. Like, oh, dude,
I
your
was
life's about to get complicated. That is just messy. I just felt for him. Like, ooh,
oh
you're about
yeah.
to go in a whirlwind of pain.
And
Be
it's deep.
prepared.
It's such a cool, interesting book. His father's Lucifer, and his mother is Zeus's wife. And so the way that he was born is that Lucifer transformed himself into Zeus. You know, that went down. But it was sort of like one of those war things, like to get a war started.
So, do you pick between blood, duty, or your own passion? Like, what do you do?
Exactly, exactly.
It always comes back because everybody wants to define themselves by how they were raised, which has genetics, that's a huge thing. You know, what have you been raised as? What is your DNA? But then we still have free will. What are you going to do with it? So you have that huge mix of, am I taking over hell? Am I taking over Olympus? Or am I just
E-
going to heaven? What do you do?
Exactly. The flip is that he abandons it all and goes at all of them.
Well, this is
Which,
about to go down.
yeah, yeah, it's really interesting. I love it.
Okay, so then you're ready to publish now.
It's ready to publish. Just needs the cover
Awesome.
art. Yeah, just needs the cover art.
Well, we'll be looking forward. I want an email telling me when it's out because I'm quite curious about this poor man. I'm like, oh God.
So cool. So interesting. So
Awesome.
cool.
So tell us, Linwood, if you had to give an up and coming author an advice, what would you tell them?
I would tell them stick it out because I'm with a traditional slash vanity publisher, and no matter what you do, whether you go the self-published route where it's just you or vanity slash traditional publisher, it's still always going to be you, and the effort that you put in determines the support that you get from your audience. You're definitely being fed by your audience, and sometimes the content you put out really makes no difference to them. Sticking it out to the point where your brand is getting out there. That's what I mean. Getting you out there, letting whatever tribe is yours out there feel you. And that's not going to be instant. That's not going to be 6 months or like 3 years. It takes a lot of time and wisely use of your money also. At least I thought that you could put money anywhere and it would just get you someplace. But come to find out, there are sharks in the world. Understanding that the effort that you spend time giving somebody else your work, you can actually do it yourself and in a way that's more efficient toward you. So doing the work yourself and using help when you need it. Know when you need help. Don't just think you need help with everything. Like know when you need help and seek out the help that you need that's for you. Because the people that I now work with that now support me, the team that I'm forming, they care for my message and they care for who I am and they care mostly not even for me or who I am, but for the people that's going to hear it, because they themselves are benefiting from the time that they spend from me and the little conversations that we have, and also from the philosophy that they know that I'm about. So getting a team together that supports you and that supports your growth as a human being and also inwardly, and more so as a human being and inwardly for your audience, do what you can, but when you know you need help, do it. And the grit of putting your brand out there, get your brand out there. Just forget what you think, forget what people think. You matter. You are here for a reason. You have this skill and this talent for a reason. Perfect it, and to the point where your brand is noticed. Whatever you imagine yourself to be, you will get there with the grit that you go into.
That is a powerful and beautiful advice for everybody. So, any aspiring authors who's looking at it, how do I go about it? You definitely matter. You definitely can do it. So, I love it. So, tell us, Linwood, where can our listeners find you?
Find me on my website, linwoodjacksonjr.com, LINWOOD, linwoodjacksonjr.com. Or you can just type my name into Google, I will pop up. You can type my name into YouTube, I will pop up.
So our listeners can find you. They can get a hold of the book. They can ask you some questions. This is exciting. It has been such a pleasure talking to you, but we're going to switch gears. Are you ready for the lightning round?
Oh, maybe, I think.
What?
I hope. Kind of. Yes, I'm ready.
Easy peasy. Don't think too hard on it. These are fun, easy questions. Let's get started. Ready?
Yep.
Apple cider or pumpkin spice?
Pumpkin spice.
Good call. City or country?
Country.
Really? Documentary or fiction?
Documentary.
That's a good one. What is your favorite type of music?
Classical.
Last one. Let's see how you do. One word that best describes you.
Oh man. Curious.
Beautiful one. Perfect. It has been an absolute honor. I am so excited you joined us. Do you have any closing remarks for us?
Empathy. I guess that's what I would close on. Empathy. But cultivate it, learn about it, and don't just forgive to forgive, but experience the feeling of what forgiveness feels like, to gain a knowledge of it, to empathize.
I love it. Thank you so much for joining us. It has been an honor. And
Thank you.
to our listeners, go ahead, give this podcast a like, give this wherever you're listening from. Give us a like, give us a review, share with your friends. You know, it's always better to grow a community. Remember, we'll be back next Friday with another new episode with another exciting author. And thank you for joining us. Thank you, Linwood.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.